Hello, welcome to Thor Talk, the show all about Marvel's resident God of Thunder. On this episode of Thor Talk, we look throughout the Thor Trilogy for some incredible movie details that were hidden in plain sight. These aren't just Easter eggs or references to the comics, but details that make the films themselves more complex and impressive. Let's take a look on Thor Talk.
I am Thor the Thunderer, son of Odin, Prince of Asgard, and this world is under my protection.
Again, we'll be going movie by movie to look at details that further explain the movie, the world, and the characters themselves. So, let's begin. In the first Thor movie, Thor's coronation is interrupted by frost giants slipping into Asgard's vaults and attempting to retake the Casket of Ancient Winters. Thor, Loki, Sif, and the Warriors 3 plan on going to Jotunheim to find answers, not knowing that it was Loki himself who let the frost giants in. But Heimdall is far from completely fooled by Loki. When they ask Heimdall to take them to Jotunheim, he says,
"Never has an enemy slipped my watch until this day." I wish to know how that happened.
If you look carefully, you can see that after Heimdall says that an enemy has never slipped past his watch, he actually glances at Loki right before he says he wishes to know how that happened. This detail shows that Heimdall suspected Loki from the start, showing his intelligence and mistrust of Loki. As you may already know, the top of Mjolnir has runes written on it. What you may not know is that these runes roughly translate to, "He who wields this hammer commands the lightning and the storm." But it goes even deeper. Later, presumably after Odin applied the worthiness enchantment, the runes have changed to the classic, "Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor." So that triquetra is not the only sign of the worthiness enchantment. It is actually written on the top of Mjolnir in runes. When the Warriors 3 and Sif arrive on Earth in the first Thor movie, two S.H.I.E.L.D. agents spot them and call them in as
At base, we've got Xena, Jackie Chan, and Robin Hood.
However, it seems that they have omitted Volstagg from this report. The reason why these agents would forget to call in such a large Asgardian is because in the original scene, Volstagg wasn't there. He had slipped away from the others after smelling the Burger King cheeseburger that one of the agents had and took them by surprise.
Call it in.
Never cared for spies. Exquisite.
In Thor the Dark World, the writers designed an entirely unique language for the Dark Elves.
Al-Ayafihi Velamefe, Rashi Bente Ayafanta.
But what you may not have noticed is that they only speak English when talking to Asgardians.
Who are you?
I am Malekith, and I would have what is mine.
This is not a mistake, but rather a detail, as the Asgardians speak the All-Tongue, which means that they hear every language as their own, or English in this case. This also means that Jane Foster had no idea what Malekith was saying here. In Thor Ragnarok, Hela draws her power from Asgard, but if you pay close attention, her clothing shows her power grow when she arrives on Asgard. When she first appears on Earth, her costume is black with tears in it, but when she arrives on Asgard, her costume adds a brighter green to it, and the tatters are repaired. When Thor arrives on Sakaar, he is overwhelmed with enemies seemingly at every turn. That is until he spots Loki, who seems to have made friends quite fast. When Thor spots him, Loki has just told a story that makes everyone around him laugh. If you listen carefully, or turn on subtitles, you can see that Loki says, This seems to be a reference to Loki's apparent death in the first Thor movie, and it's apparently a favorite story on Sakaar. When Thor fights the Hulk on Sakaar, he wears a teal shoulder pad and a teal knee pad. He has both on when talking to Valkyrie after the fight, but the knee pad goes missing later on. This is because as Thor is sliding off the building during his escape, the knee pad slides off as Thor keeps on going. After years of Loki tricking Thor and getting the better of him, Thor has finally caught on, as when Loki betrays Thor yet again, Thor was prepared. He managed to get an obedience disc on Loki and uses it on him. If you look back at the heart-to-heart the two share on the elevator, you can actually see Thor pat Loki on the back. This is presumably when he puts the obedience disc on Loki's back, and shows that while Thor loves his brother, he's done letting Loki push him around. When Thor arrives on Asgard, he takes a look at the Asgardian tapestry which Hela destroyed earlier on. It appears that there's a crack over Thor's right eye. This foreshadows how Thor will lose his right eye in the upcoming fight with Hela. Throughout Thor Ragnarok, Loki and Hulk never really get a face-to-face confrontation. That is until they are both on board the Statesman. It seems Hulk hasn't quite forgiven Loki as the others have, as when Loki passes him, Hulk makes a fist, clearly holding back his urge to throw Loki into space. So, there you have it. 10 details that were actually hidden in plain sight. I know that some of these may have leaned slightly closer to a common Easter egg, but I still thought they were interesting enough to include. Well, that's all for this episode of Thor Talk. If you want to keep up with and support Thor Talk, simply subscribe. You can also follow Thor Talk on Instagram @ThorTalk. Once again, I'd like to formally state that all art and video is owned by its respective companies, and I own none of it. With that said, see you next time on Thor Talk, where...
Behold him